Hi DofEers, nice to see you for our first training session together here at home with Mr. and Mrs. Barry. Now we're going to start off with trangias. Now trangias are what we tend to use on our DofE trips, firstly because we've got plenty of them, and secondly because they're robust, they're relatively light, the aluminium conducts heat really well, and they're pretty straightforward to use. So if you'd like to zoom in a little bit on the trangia itself, we can have a little look through about how it works. So this strap here is obviously to keep everything together. And you need to make sure you don't lose this because otherwise it's going to fall apart afterwards. And as you can see, they go through the bottom there. So we take that out, get that out of the way because obviously that will catch on fire. So we want to be careful with that. Now there's several little bits going on here at once. First of all, you have the lid. Now the lid also doubles up as your frying pan. Now some of the trangias also contain a really cute little kettle that I think is rather sweet. They don't all have one though. So if you really don't want a kettle, try and get one that doesn't have it. And if you do want one, then make sure you ask us. So if you're somebody who likes a cup of tea, you want one with a kettle. Then inside here, you'll have the little what's-it. I don't actually know what those are called, but that's where the meths goes inside. And that has three different parts. The putter outer, the snuffer, again, don't know what that's actually called, the lid, and then the little what's-it itself, where you put in the meths, the stuff that burns. Then inside here, we've also got a couple of pans, which work as ordinary saucepans. Now you might be thinking, hang on, where are the handles? Don't worry, because we've got one of those as well. And as you can see, we have one handle for all these different bits and pieces. So what I'm going to show you now is how we actually go ahead and put this together. So as you can see, there are two final parts left here. This bit with the kind of holes and the grid in it, sorry, this bit, I keep holding it up too high guys, sorry. And then this part that has these kind of clippy bits on the inside. And these fit together to create the actual main part of the trangia itself when you're cooking. So as you can probably see, there's little grooves in this bit, and you have to be careful, these are rather sharp on your fingers. And then there's corresponding grooves along the edges of this piece. But with a little bit of a fiddle, you'll manage to get them together. And then they should stay together like that. Here we are. Now as you can see, there is a hole on the inside, and that's where we're actually going to be putting our what's-it burner thingy-majiggy. That fits in there nicely. Now obviously, this is not going to do any cooking unless it's on fire. And to get it to be on fire, we need to add some of this very pretty purple liquid. Now I can just hear my onions at the moment, perhaps being a little bit overdone and a little bit burny if I'm not there fast. Oh yeah, that was lucky, look, that could have gone really bad. So we'll just give those a little stir. I think we'll take those off the heat actually before they are completely destroyed. So we'll pop those aside there and come back to them in a minute. Okay. So back to the other trangia that we're still putting together. So we need to put some of this lovely looking purple liquid in here. Now this is methylated spirits. Am I saying that right? I think I'm saying that right. Now it's very, very pretty and purple, but that's actually for a reason, because although this is alcohol and obviously some alcohol is drinkable, this definitely is not. So you want to be sure that you definitely know what it is, and that's why it's coloured purple. It is poisonous, so please do not be tempted. And also you don't need to bring this with you guys. We'll actually provide this for you. So we'll bring this on the trip. So this goes in here. Sorry, there's a cat joining us now, hope you don't mind. And we make sure we put the lid on there, keep that nice and safe. We don't want that spilling and catching fire or anything horrible happening. And then this will go inside our hole, as I showed you before. So let's move down to the floor now. Mine in okay position there, sir. Okay, lovely. Now, Matilda, you need to scoop because you're not helping. So we're now going to light the trangia. Now when you first light it, it can be quite difficult to actually tell whether or not the flame is going. So you'll get used to it. But you really need to make sure also that you are trying to keep as out of the wind as possible. And obviously by having your hand in here, you are out of the wind. But do be careful when you're lighting it. And again, you don't need to bring the matches with you. We will provide these for you. I think we're going. Sometimes it can take a moment to be sure. Very carefully I can feel whether or not this is going. Obviously don't get too close to it gradually because it will be hot. Yes, that is definitely going. Excellent. So what I was cooking here before we started was some onions, which I thought we'd make into a part of our delicious snack, a hot dog. So as you can see, they were cooking like this. So that's how you'd use your frying pan. You need to have the little clippy bits out, or I'm not quite sure what they're called to be honest, but the little brackety bits. They need to be out so that they can hold on to your frying pan for you. Then here, we're actually going to have a go at using some of the other parts of the trangia. So I thought we'd make a lovely cup of coffee on this trangia. Obviously we need water for this. Wherever we camp there will be water taps, and you should make sure that you definitely bring some kind of container, a decent sized one that you can carry water about in. And then we pop on our lid. And if you notice on this one, I might just move this slightly, bearing in mind this one is not burning. On this one, the clippy bits are actually on the inside. That's because the little kettle will then sit happily there until it is boiled. I think we'll cut. Hi, welcome back guys. So we're just waiting for the kettle to boil at the moment, but I thought I'd chat to you about a few other things that are really important when we're considering cooking and food on the expeditions. First of all, you'll notice the way that I'm sitting/kneeling at the moment. Now this is really important because as you can see we're going to be cooking on the ground and you're not going to be on a table. So if somebody comes running along or is kicking a ball and this goes flying, then obviously hot water, hot food, methylated spirits, it's going to be nasty and it's going to come towards you. So if we're in this position, we can very quickly step back safely. Whereas if we're sitting like this, or we're treating it like a little campfire, or we're not paying attention, that's dangerous. So we want to be sure that we're always sitting like this. And Mr. Wilson says propose to the trangia. That's the way he always remembers it. Pretend that you're proposing to the trangia. So something else to bear in mind as well when you're considering your food for the trips is weight, and also whether or not it's something that's perishable. So on the first day for your lunch, it's fine to bring something that would not normally last unless it was in the fridge, because you're going to eat it that same day. But after that, and this is particularly important for the silver expeditions, your food needs to be something that is not going to be bothered by not being in the fridge and by possibly getting rather hot, because we'll be going around in July and June sort of time a lot of the time. Either way, there's not going to be a fridge. So you need to bear in mind that whatever you bring with you has to be something that won't go off if it's not kept cold. And then alongside that, you need to also consider the weight. We ban tins. We do not allow tins on the expeditions. Now you'll see in a minute I have actually got a little tin of sausages, but that's because here we are in, these difficult times where I can't just pop to the supermarket to get what I normally would. So bear in mind, I've got a tin, but you won't be doing that. So you need to make sure that whatever you bring with you is light, it's going to last, it's not going to go off, it's not going to be stinky. Is it easy to prepare? Because if you want something that needs chopping or cutting, you are then going to need to bring a knife and a board, and obviously that's going to be silly. So you need to bring stuff that's ready to go and pretty simple to cook. And I'd really recommend getting together with the other people in your group and sharing. So one of you could perhaps bring the pasta sauce, one of you could bring the pasta, someone else can bring the salt and pepper and some maybe mushrooms or something to pop in there. Just have a little think about what you can do. Bear in mind, some fresh food is fine. It will last outside of the fridge for a couple of days, but really think it through. And I'll be sending all this information and lots of ideas out to you nearer the time. Okay, I think we are nearly boiled. Let's have a look. Yep, I think we're almost there. So in a moment we'll be having a cup of coffee, and then we'll be returning our attention back to the hot dogs. Speak to you again soon. Hi, welcome back. Matilda, no, these sausages are not for you. Move away, please. So our kettle is now boiled and we are ready for a delicious cup of coffee. Something else to bear in mind, if you are a tea or a coffee lover, obviously you're not going to be able to bring milk. You can bring powdered milk if you can be bothered to make that and mix water in with it. You could also bring those little teeny kind of sachets of UHT milk, which you can get hold of. But I would really only bother with that if you really, really desperately want milky tea or milky coffee, because it's just a pain, to be honest. I would recommend either not bothering or having it black, or maybe hot chocolate, because hot chocolate's a nice, easy thing to bring along with you. Okay, so let's focus in on the trangia here. We can clearly see that the kettle is now boiling and lovely and hot and ready to go. And again, remember to maintain this position at all times. And here we go. Let's make a delicious cup of coffee. Yummy, yummy. Alright, so we've now finished with our little kettle. So obviously we don't want to just then go and bung it straight down on the grass because that's hot, it could damage the grass. We won't be welcome back to that campsite again if we do that. So we want to make sure that we've got somewhere to put it. So if there is something nearby, something, you know, concrete, or if there's something metal like the table, fine. But if there wasn't, then what I tend to do is just use what we've already got with us, which is either the other saucepan or the lid. Just pop it down somewhere so you can then stick your kettle on there safely. And obviously we don't have to use the handle, this handle, sorry, with this because we've got a rubberized handle already. So we can pop that aside. Okay, so I'm going to pop the onions back on. And trust me, I've tried them. They're not as burnt as they look. They're actually rather delicious. So these are going to make part of our hot dog. But obviously, we're going to be needing some sausages, some frankfurters, if we're going to enjoy a delicious hot dog. And vegetarian options are available, Mr. Wilson and other weirdos that don't eat meat. So we can pop that on there. Oh, I made a mistake there. Did you see what I did? I put that down without using my handle, so I should not have done that. So we need to always make sure that we're doing this. Now, it's naughty to do that when you're putting it on, but obviously it's not only naughty, it's also dangerous to do that when you're taking it off because it will be hot. So I got away with it because it was cold and going on, but we really, really need to get out of that habit. It was very naughty of me. We need to make sure that we're using the handles because it will get very, very hot, and obviously that would be horrible and you'd be burnt and we'd be in trouble, and that's really not what we want to end up happening. Now, as I'm sure you know from your chemistry lessons and then your other science lessons, this is going to boil a lot faster if we pop a lid on it. Now, I've already got my kettle sitting on my lid over here, but that's not a problem. I can just grab this bad boy, bring this down, move my kettle to there, and then I could pop this on to help get this going. So we can put it on like that, and it'll just act like a little makeshift lid. Okay, we'll give that a chance to boil, and we'll be back again. See you in a minute. Welcome back. Okay, so if we now take a look at our little trangia that had its the boiling water, sorry, not the boiling water, the pot of water placed on it. As you can see, it's now quite steamy. It's not boiling. If you'd like to come in and have a look closer. It doesn't need to be bubbling and boiling in order to heat the sausages through, obviously. This will be sufficient. So if we pop this aside, notice how I'm turning it round the other way because it was hot on the other side. I don't want to damage the grass. So we can now, oh, whoops-a-daisy. Oh, please excuse the cat, she's a sausage lover. So we now can pop in a couple of our sausages to heat through. Un, dos. Yes, you can have some in a minute. And again, we want this to heat up quite quickly and not have to wait forever and ever. So if we pop our lid back on, which is now cool, but I will do this anyway as I'm going near the heat, and we'll just give those a couple of minutes to warm through. We'll also pop our sausages back on, and we'll see you in probably 1 to 2 minutes for a delicious hot dog. See you soon. Welcome back, everybody, to this final instalment of Cookery with Mrs. Barry. As you can see, everything is nice and hot now. The onions are sizzling away. You can tell that this is steaming away, and those sausages are going to be tasty and hot and delicious. So it's time to get everything served. So as I said before, obviously these are hot, and the last thing we want to do is either burn ourselves or the grass and upset the campsite owners. So we need to make sure that we take this off, and if concrete is available or a table that won't burn and melt is available, great, but if not, we've always got our little pots here that we can turn over and use instead. Same as this. If you flip that one over, that's going to be all right. And then our boiling water, we need to be really careful here because obviously that would be awful, a terrible scald if that got on you. But these handles are fantastic. Then move this across and pop that on there, or equally, we could have popped it on there. Any of those would be absolutely fine. You just want to make sure you don't damage the grass. Okay, and before we can actually go ahead and serve up, as you can see, we've now got 2 little trangias burning away, and that's wasting meths, and it's dangerous because it's a naked flame unnecessarily. So what we need to do is grab our little putter outers, if you want to zoom in and have a look at one of those. Notice how this doesn't have a screw top. The screw top is the lid that you used earlier, that you would have used earlier when you were walking around with your meths in there to make sure it didn't spill out. This is for putting out. Now, I don't always get this right. You have to try your best. You need to come in from above. Don't get too close so that you burn yourself. Get it as accurate as you can and try and plop it into place. That was close enough. That will go out. We'll try a second time here. Ah, terrible. So what do we do if that happens? Well, we can either leave it burning if we don't feel confident to get to it, or if we have a way of removing it without damaging ourselves, we can try. I don't feel comfortable grabbing hold of that, so in reality we're going to have to let that burn out. So what I might do is grab hold of this lid, which is now cold, and if I pop this on the top using my handle, because now I'm putting it back on the heat, that will actually suffocate the flame. So once that hasn't got any oxygen coming to it, it will go out anyway. Things don't always go to plan on camp. You know, that's life. So we just have to adjust accordingly. All right, actually, I need my handle again. Oh, hair in the way, excuse me. So we now want to serve up our sausages. In fact, I think what I might do, just like we would on camp, is bring everything down to me. So here we have one I prepared earlier. Now, unfortunately, I wish that these, black fingers, I wish that these cheese slices would last forever and we could have them all the time, but they're not going to last forever. But for the first night, that would be fine if you wanted to bring some cheesy slices with you. Okay, so we are now going to pop in our sausages. Delicious. Hello, Matilda. She's back. It's because of the sausage. She heard what I was saying. We're going to pop that bad boy in. Double sausage, why not? Greedy times. And I think a few of our delicious onions. Where's my spoon? There it is. Ooh, they're a bit sticky. I might use the grabber, actually. That's how I like them, though. Don't know about you guys, but nice and sticky and brown and delicious. Get a few of those on. And, ooh, yeah, I'll put that there. That's fine. And then finally, ketchup, of course, and mustard. Ooh, come out, bad boy. There we go. Now that, to me, looks like a delicious snack. However, I'm not going to eat that on camera because that's going to be a bit messy and a bit boring. A bit disgusting to watch is what I actually meant. So I think I'll eat that off camera. Just before you go, though, let me just remind you of the few bits and pieces we've got going on here. So remember, we've put this out now, and that one's absolutely fine. This one that I made a mistake with, because I've now suffocated that, with any luck it might have gone out. It may not, so we'll have a little look. Yes, as you can see, that has now gone out because we suffocated the flame. Now, if there is... Oh, that's hot, so be careful. Put that round the other way. Now, if there is any methylated spirits, any meths, left in your little pot, well, you're going to need to dispose of that safely. Now, we're obviously going to be on a campsite. It's going to be a rural area. However, people are there. They're camping. They're enjoying themselves. There's going to be young children about a lot of the time. So you can't just go and chuck it any old place. You need to find somewhere safe to dispose of that small amount of meths. So normally we'd look for somewhere, you know, down in the bottom of the hedges or something, or in a little muddy area if we're by fields, just somewhere where nobody is going to be, you know, rooting around and finding where you've poured that, and it will disappear very quickly and evaporate as soon as you've got rid of it. But don't just chuck it all over the place. Make sure that you throw it somewhere sensible. These do cool off pretty quickly. You know, within 2 minutes or so they'll be nice and cool. So this one, for example, is now cool. There's a bit of methylated spirits left in there, so we'll make sure we dispose of that carefully. And then obviously you just take everything apart in the opposite way to how you put it together. Give it a good scrub. We normally make sure we send these home with you at the end of the trip as well to go through the dishwasher, because that's the best way to get them clean. And on the actual campsite, obviously there won't be a dishwasher, so you'll need to make sure that you bring a scouring pad and some fairy liquid with you. Otherwise, these are going to be kind of greasy, and you don't want those being carried around in your bag. So I think that's everything. So I hope you've enjoyed this online lesson about cookery. Would have preferred to have done it in person, but still, this is the second best option. And we'll see you next time for erecting and pitching tents. Take care.